Good evening. Welcome to the RSU 5 Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, June 12th, 2019, our last regularly scheduled board meeting for the school year. Everyone is in attendance. Welcome. And I want to start with a thank you to Erica, because this I guess we are going to have another meeting next week, but it's just an executive session. So this is probably the last public meeting. So I just wanted to thank you for your year with us on the board and wish you well. And hopefully you'll come back to visit. Yes. And we'll thank you, Lindsay, for reminding me that we have to start with the pledge. I also got some questions today about how come the Red Sox can move their game up so that everybody's out in time for the Bruins, but we couldn't move our meeting up, so I apologize for that. But I will try to keep us on task this evening and get people out at least before the end of the game. But we're going to start with a motion for consideration and approval for the minutes for the May 8th and May 22nd, 2019 meetings as presented, barring any errors or omissions. Mara and Lindsay, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, we have a couple this evening. I would like to table 11A until the fall. Cynthia's not here, and there's not anything urgent about that, so I'm requesting that. And then we need to add a 15G to consider the employment of a choral teacher at Freeport Middle and High School, and then add also an executive session at the end for consideration of approval to discuss information contained in some confidential school records.
Okay. So, good news and recognition. So this is the meeting each year where we gratefully recognize our retirees. And I think Becky's going to go do that? Okay. Do you want us somewhere? Or are you going to?
No, I think you're fine.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember how we did it last year, but I think at the end we just kind of have the retiree go around and shake each of your hands. Is that what we did last year? We stand in the middle. Oh, did you stand in the middle? Mm-hmm. Oh, so if you want to stand now, mm-hmm. I mean, maybe it's time for a movement break.
Did we really do that? No. Natalie's down there. Okay.
Yeah. That's working, right? Can you hear me? Yeah? Trevor, am I good? All right. So tonight we are celebrating 8 people that are retiring from RSU 5. And these moments, I think, are always kind of bittersweet, because we really are here to thank you and celebrate you for all of your years of service to our students in RSU 5. And we're also sad to see you go, but we understand that in all of our lives there comes a time when we're ready for the next step in what we're wanting to take. And for you, you've decided that it's time for retirement and to move on to new adventures that probably many of you have prolonged, because we know in education that it's not just an 8-to-5 job. It's a job that goes on into the evening and on to the weekends, and sometimes you have to put things aside that maybe excite you, but you're putting students first. So we're really thanking you for all of that. And so what we're going to do this evening is to have each administrator of your building come up and just say a few words, and then we have a small token of appreciation from the district for you. So we're going to start with Principal Pidden coming up and speaking first about Cheryl Morse.
Does Cheryl come up right now? Or does
Yes, I think Cheryl should come up right now.
You can help me if I fail. Thank you. So, for those of you who don't know, I'd like to introduce you to Cheryl Morse. Cheryl has been teaching at Durham Elementary School and Durham Community School for 40 years. Prior to teaching at Durham Elementary School, Cheryl was a student at Durham Elementary School and then at Freeport High School, and had gone off to college to train to be a teacher, and had anticipated traveling to different schools in different areas, but the principal at the time knew a good thing when she had seen it, and invited Cheryl straight from college to be a long-term sub in the school, and then decided that she'd be a great addition to the school. And 40 years later, Cheryl is now stood here, having given really her heart and soul to the children and the community of Durham. We were figuring out the number of children who Cheryl's work has impacted from 3rd grade, 2nd grade, 1st grade. And in fact, Candy was remembering that her daughter had Cheryl in 3rd grade, and that the piece I would just like to highlight also is it's not just the children who Cheryl's impacted. She's been a great colleague, mentoring younger teachers into the profession, giving them guidance and support, and also just a huge resource in terms of her experience and the resources she had accumulated. Cheryl was really the internet before the internet existed. And we sort of joked that her classroom was Borders before Borders existed, that if teachers needed a book or a resource, they could find it there. So we shall miss Cheryl, but thank her greatly for everything she's contributed. Oh, okay, so I think you're going to go that way, but I'm going to shake your hand anyway. I will add that Cheryl was also a huge help because she was right across the road from the school, and in the old school she had about every key after the doors would get changed so many times, and there were many times I'd get locked out and I'd be like, oh, I have to go to Cheryl. Cheryl, could you come? How about one of your keys? So she's helped me get into work on several occasions. So also I'd like to invite Bob Simmons to come up. And Bob will be completing his 37th year this year in education and with Durham. And again, has, one of the things about a small school is people often take on many roles in order to get the school through the day. So Bob started out in teaching language arts in middle school, and then if there's ever been a need, Bob has stepped in to fill it. So when they needed some support in 6th grade, he was teaching in 6th grade. Then MLTI came around in Maine and needed some support in figuring out how to have laptops and computers in school. Bob became the technology teacher, and in fact the technology department. So there was, if you couldn't find Bob in the summer, you'd sort of look under the big 3-5 modular building, and you could holler under there and he'd be running wires or above the ceiling, or setting up wireless networks in the school. And then again, as needs evolved, Bob was then teaching 4th grade and 6th grade, and now is retiring from a 7th, 8th grade social studies position. So, a man of many skills and many attributes. Similarly to Cheryl, I think one of the other great pieces that Bob leaves as a legacy is just the contributions he's made to the staff over so many years. If Bob would be walking by the office and if he knew that a colleague wasn't feeling well and had to leave, Bob he'd see a need before we would, and he'd be like, listen, I can cover that duty, and also have a planning period there, so I'm happy to take that class if that's going to help while you find someone to fill in. If there's anybody needing some support, again, as Cheryl has always done, Bob has been a wonderful contributor to staff and to parents and to students. So likewise, there's a lot of experience walking out the door, but we wish you the best with your retirement. Congratulations.
Lisa.
I'm happy to honor Linda Woodard, who's worked at PES for 20 years. The first word that comes to mind with Linda for me is the word professional. She takes her job very seriously and is always looking for ways to better herself. So she always would welcome coaches in, always looking for feedback. And most importantly, I've never heard her say a bad word about a student. It's always, what else can I try? And no matter, no matter how tough, it's always her sort of putting it on her shoulders to better the kids. Another word that comes to mind is style, because whether it's her beautiful scarves that she's taught me how to do, or the December matching earrings and socks that come out, I think it's about the way that she approaches her interactions with her colleagues. Now, you may not be able to tell it right now, but she's not a fan of the spotlight, but she's always the one that's in the background, cheering on her partners and just handling things with grace and supporting everyone that comes through the door. She's well liked and respected by all of the staff and families at PES, and I think that comes from being the youngest of 5. She can get along with everybody, right? And so she's had some interesting partners over the years, right? And they always find her to be a great intellectual partner, as well as somebody that's really fun to work with. Finally, one of Linda's catchphrases for me is always, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. And so as she retires, I have a few of those I'm going to tell her. So I'm hoping that you will enjoy time with your family, especially the ever-growing number of grandchildren. I hope that you will help Bruce at tax time and just a little. And I hope you'll travel and get to explore, maybe get back to your art and follow your own passions. But hopefully, part of what you'll do is to not be a stranger at PES, because we'll really miss having you there. So.
So I'd like to introduce you to Beth Malone. She's retiring from Moore Street. I'm going to read what I've prepared because I don't know that I'm not going to get through this without crying. So Beth is retiring after a career in education for 47 years, 19 years at Moore Street School, where she's been a beloved first grade teacher, kindergarten teacher, and ed tech. And before joining the Moore Street team, she enjoyed many more years in education. She started her career teaching in her home state of Virginia and then moved to New Hampshire and worked at Keene State College as a supervisor at the Early Childhood Center. Beth is truly one of a kind. She brings a wonderful balance of dedication, warmth, and a sense of fun to her work. It is very hard to keep a straight face at IEP meetings when Beth is reporting to parents with her crazy hair still intact as if it's perfectly normal. Beth's always puts students first in her decision making and constantly manages to find the positive in every situation. She's consistently created a learning environment that values the social and emotional growth of learners just as much as the academic growth. Beth encourages students through goal setting and reflection and makes sure she celebrates small wins at every opportunity. She never shies away from tough conversation, but always delivers the message in a thoughtful and kind way. And as we near the end of the school year, we often talk with students about finishing strong as a way to encourage them to hang on in there. Beth Marklon is ending her career as an educator, certainly finishing strong. She's reflective and always questioning her practice and seeking to improve as a means to be the best teacher she can be, and this year has been no exception. Just this week, Beth and I were sitting together and she was sharing her learnings from this year and suggestions for improvement for next. So she's leaving us on a high note and an inspiration to us all. It's been an honor to call Beth my colleague. She'll leave a hole that will be very hard to fill at our team at Moore Street, and I know I speak for everyone in wishing her well in her retirement and the adventures that lie ahead. Thank you.
So it's my honor to celebrate the career of Nadia Pearson tonight. Given the choice to attend the board meeting or stay at the party the staff is throwing for her, she has opted to stay at the party. I told her she can stream the video later. But there's probably nothing better that captures Nadia's career than what happened to me in the cafeteria last week. Our fourth graders had gone out to Egg Rock where there are puffins to see the puffins, and I asked a student casually, so how was the trip? Expecting to hear like, oh, pretty cool, I saw some puffins. And the fourth grade boy looked at me and he said, I saw 2 double-breasted cormorants, some gannets, 4 eider ducks, a razorbill, and some harbor seals and porpoises, as my jaw dropped at his knowledge of distinguishing all of those birds and sea animals. And this student's knowledge and excitement is a reflection of the passion that Nadia brings to her profession. Her engagement and excitement, particularly for the natural world, infuses everything she does, and students feed off that excitement and become naturalists themselves through her work. She began teaching in Freeport schools in 1989, before Mass Landing even was built, working in the old Soul School, and then later in the Soul program at Mass Landing School. She exempts the tenets of this program. She breathes creativity and passion into her classroom, and she is currently the longest serving member of the MLS staff when she leaves. Over the 30 years of her career, she continues to bring positivity, energy, and passion to her work. Today, she was just glowing at work, and it wasn't a reflection of the fact that there are 7 days left, but because it is what she has brought to every day this year. It reminds me of Beth and this idea of finishing strong and truly loving what you do to the very last moment of doing it. She is focused not just on growing kids academically, but on sparking their interests and cultivating their creativity, things that remain with students long past their time in her classroom. It is in this way that her impact will continue to kind of ripple beyond her years at Mass Landing. This evening, as we were celebrating together over at Wolf Neck Farm, somebody pulled out an old Soul School diploma, so it was what was given to students. And there was some language on it that just really spoke to me, so I wrote it down quickly, which the diploma was given for having undertaken and magnificently fulfilled many worthy and wondrous deeds. And I think there's no better way to describe what Nadia has done in her 30 years for students of Freeport. So I wish her the best in her retirement.
So I have the pleasure of having Joe Cormer join me up here. And 41 years ago, he started at the old middle school. Does anyone know where the old middle school was? Right out back here. So that's where Joe's...
More that way, but yeah.
You're right, more that way. Sorry, I gotta learn my directions here. So 41 years ago, Joe started there for the middle school. I'm not sure what else I really need to say after that, but the last 10 or so years I've seen him in action as I've been the principal of the middle school, and he's just been absolutely great with kids. You know, I'm very sad to see him leave. You know, whenever I ask him to do anything extra or special, He absolutely does it. We realized at 12 o'clock today, the person for recess duty wasn't in the building. Joe picked it up, without a hitch. A student joined us, earlier this year that spoke no English. We couldn't put him into foreign language. Joe picked him up for phys ed extra times in the year. Joe will do anything to help our building. As you know, we never have enough subs. Joe, I'm not sure how often he gets a prep period because he will take them during his prep all the time for us. So definitely going to make my job a lot harder finding coverage next year in the morning with that. But Joe is absolutely amazing with the kids. They have fun in there. They learn great skills, and it's just a great place for kids to learn and enjoy school. With our staff, absolutely amazing, still a leader on the staff. We present a new idea, something new to change, to move forward, and Joe's like always very positively, let's give this a try, let's see how this works. And with that, we're going to miss his voice quite a bit on the staff. Coaching, he for most of those years he was coaching all 3 seasons for us between baseball, cross country, and basketball. And the last thing I will is just share one story that Tom McKibben shared with me. Tom McKibben, who teaches at Mass Landing School, who grew up in the same town as Mr. Cormier. Tom McKibben talks about the stories of growing up and watching Joe play basketball, and Joe was the legend in the town playing basketball and with that. So that's what Tom passed on to me. But Joe will definitely be sorely missed at our school, and I definitely wish you the best moving forward because we'll miss you without a doubt.
Just like a
Exactly.
Hi, everyone. I'm recognizing 2 of our retirees at Freeport High School. The first is our wonderful main office and guidance secretary, Sue Allen, who absolutely hates the spotlight. I don't think she's watching the Bruins, and her party isn't tonight. I tried to convince her about 3 o'clock. Come on, Sue. But I could not convince her. But Sue began working here 22 years ago, but she was also a student at Freeport High School. She splits her time between the main office and the guidance office. And one of the things that I think people will remember her most about is she's usually the first face and the last face that people see when they walk into the building, because she has the morning shift in the main office and then comes back in the afternoon. She's had this unbelievable calm demeanor about her, no matter what upset student or parent or anybody comes through the office. Often in the afternoon, it's just the 2 of us, and I hear her say on the phone, I can see how that might upset you. and then proceeds just as calmly to address whatever concern it is. She's always supportive of kids, of staff. She's always positive. I had to do this to her. I don't know if you can see this on camera. That is her yearbook photo from the kids dedicated a page to her. And I'll just read you her own words because I thought it was great. Who would have thought as an FHS student in the 1970s that eventually I would spend 22 years as one of the office secretaries? One of my greatest pleasures, besides the awesome coworkers I have had, has been to watch the freshmen speed ahead 4 years and become some of the most outstanding young people I know. I have been proud of our students on so many occasions, from the small kindnesses I've seen to the extraordinary accomplishments they've achieved throughout their 4 years at FHS. What has been fun coming to work is knowing that no day is ever the same. You cannot make up the stuff that happens in a school. I am excited as another chapter in my life will begin, but will always have a smile for my years at FHS. So. Our second retiree is the wonderful Jay Thomas, who is here tonight. Jay is retiring after 22 years of teaching. 10 of those years have been at Freeport High School. I heard this wonderful story that some of you may know, that we used to have these massive study halls in the cafeteria, with the old cafeteria that was our 2 art rooms combined. And that's where Jay started. And the story was that all of a sudden he was looking around and just grabbing these students and saying, I'm going to help you with math. And it's not really up to you. And so he had this math corner, which hence now we have this wonderful math lab where the kids come in. But really, I think the birth of that was with Mr. Thomas in the study hall. He moved into the classroom in 2009. Jay has just been an unbelievable teacher and leader in our school. He served as the department chair. He's been on the leadership team for multiple years, all 4 of the years that I have been here. He's also the varsity ski coach. And being a ski fan, I've been able to go up to some of the races and just see that the positivity and support that he gives kids in the classroom is the same that he gives on the ski hill, where he makes kids feel valued and respected and appreciated. The positive energy that surrounds him is just unbelievable. And a couple of years ago, students do these silly superlative awards for teachers, and Jay won most likely to give a helping hand, which I think was just so well said by them. He also has a page in the yearbook where kids dedicated some quotes to him, and 2 of them that I thought were great was, Mr. Thomas is very good with kids who are very different kinds of learners. He was super easygoing, and he always had a smile on his face, even in the hallway. And I love this one. He is the reason I ended up liking math. He helped me to believe in myself. Not to mention, he is one of the most funny teachers I know. Jay will be extraordinarily missed. I can't even imagine the halls without him.
But our feelings will not be hurt if you choose not. So thank you for taking some time to come out and celebrate your years of service.
I think they just figured out they went to the same high school.
Oh, yeah. They did. Oh, that is funny.
Okay. That's such a bittersweet moment.
It is.
So much commitment to this district. So thank you all for coming for that. Okay, so we are moving on to more good news and recognition. Report from Rhea.
Hello. Happy almost summer from all the FHS students. We're all hunkering down for this last week of school before summer vacation. Graduation was last Saturday, so congrats to all the seniors. We're going to miss them all so dearly, but they're going off to change the world, so it's worth it. Freeport defeated York yesterday with a score of 2-1, becoming the MPA Class B Southern Regional Champions in baseball. So the team will be continuing on to the state championships at St. Joe's College in Standish on June 15th, this coming Saturday. So let's go and support them. Go Falcons. So the 2019 edition of the Clarion, the high school's art and literary publication, is available digitally over there. And I'm an editor, so you should get it. It's been a really great year for us, and there are a lot of really great entries. My friend Maggie Riendo is collecting school supplies to donate to the Tree Street Youth Center in Lewiston, Maine. She's going to be a junior counselor at the Maine Youth Leadership Seminar this June and is collecting these donations to bring with her for her group to donate. There is a box by the front entrance for donations. Anything is appreciated. Freeport Community Services will be running the Summer Free Lunch for Kids program beginning on June 24th and running through August 23rd, except for the 4th of July. FCS will be preparing and serving free healthy lunches for children over the summer. Meals will be at the FCS and at the Mass Landing School and will be provided to all eligible children. And volunteers are needed Monday through Friday to prepare, deliver, serve, and monitor lunches at these sites. If you're interested in helping, please contact Debbie Daggett, the volunteer coordinator at FCS. And that's all for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rhea. And I know you have to get to studying at some point, so slip out whenever you need to. Ms. Gulko says we have to let you go. I don't know. Okay, so 7, public comment. If we had anyone who wanted to share anything with the board, just let us know your name, what town you're from.
I'm Willow Wright.
Oh, if you don't mind, just the microphone because they're videoing it so people at home can hear you.
My name's Willow Wright, and I live in Freeport. And I'm here. I just have 2 brief public comments. The first being, this is coming to the end of the first year of being really actively involved again in at least 2 of your schools. And I've never seen anything quite like the level of creativity and commitment and love and compassion to the kids. And on Tuesdays, when I'm at Moore Street, I was sitting with my 2nd graders yesterday, and I said, okay, who's really excited for school to be out? And they all looked at me, and you could have heard a pin drop, and they said, I'm so sad school's going to be out. I love Mrs. Bishop. She is so kind. And I thought, well, there it is. Yay! Yay! And that's how it is week after week after week with the children at Moore Street. It has just been such a pleasure. And hopefully we'll be doing more and more mentoring in the schools. So I have to say how from the top down, the notion that a superintendent of schools actually works with kids is phenomenal. And I mean phenomenal. I work in a lot of other school districts, so I just thank you so much for, and also realizing how important your community is. We can help you so much and love, 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 love doing it. So the other thing I want to talk about is fundraising, and all I really want to say is I'd love to see us be a little bit more sensitive and take, I don't want to see kids have to individually go out and compete to be the best fundraiser. It's a game changer for a lot of kids whose parents don't have the resources. And I work with a few, and it's just like, we got to do this differently. So me being a part of the community, I'm not here to complain. I'm here to say I'd be happy to be along with others to take that up and make the difference, because I'd really love to see that go away. I think we need to be more sensitive than that. So that's all, but this school district is phenomenal, and I just thank you so much. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you for all the time you're putting in the schools.
Hello, my name is Beatrice Perrin Dahlin. I'm fairly new to Freeport, and I'm really looking forward to getting to know the schools. I've heard a lot of wonderful things, and I just want to tell you that I'm very grateful for all the service of all the people in this room, of all that you're giving. I have it written down so that I don't forget to say anything. Dear Freeport School Board, thank you for the opportunity to speak at this meeting today. I'm here to advocate for more developmentally appropriate practice in elementary school grades. In the push for American schools to be teaching math, reading, and writing, there are certain essential elements of a balanced and healthy childhood that have gotten lost and overlooked. Firstly, play in kindergarten and in the younger grades. I feel increasingly concerned about the lack of play in public school kindergarten in general, and as a Freeport resident here in Freeport. This concern is echoed from many parents I have spoken to in the community. As an early childhood educator, I know that play and learning are intrinsically linked in young children. Play, and especially the amount of time children spend in play, is linked to mental and physical health issues, brain development, and social well-being, to name just a few. There is a significant amount of research that points to more unstructured play time in schools as a means to raise more competent, regulated, socially adept, and joyful children. Some of the resources I'd like to point you to are an article titled "The Decline of Play and the Rise of Psychopathology in Children and Adolescents" by Peter Gray, a book titled "Smart Moves: Why Learning is Not All in Your Head" by Carla Hannaford, and a TED Talk called "The Decline of Play," also by Peter Gray. I urge you to take some time with these resources and begin to understand why play in the early childhood classroom is fundamental. And then I ask you to consider how we might give young children more opportunities for meaningful play at school here in Freeport. If you ask any teacher, they will probably tell you that most children do not fit in a box. And in addition to play in the early grades, our family would like to see more options for different kinds of learners within our school system. More options means meeting the needs of more learners. In addition to play, some of these school options might include things like project-based or expeditionary learning, mixed-age classrooms, and outdoor learning opportunities, to name a few. If offered, there are a significant number of families that would support and take advantage of these kind of diversified educational opportunities for their children. If you have any questions, I'm happy to talk about this further or offer additional resources to whatever extent possible. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Karen Brear, and I am a Freeport resident, and 2 of my stepchildren went through the Freeport system and have graduated and gone on and loved the system. I now have a very young child, so we have quite a split in age range with our children, and I have a 5-year-old. And I'm here to bounce off of what Beatrice was just talking about as well, and looking at schools for our daughter. We had her at a daycare, and then we transitioned her to the local Waldorf school. And in the first year, we saw her creativity, her play at home shift amazingly, because there's so many open-ended opportunities for her. The toys are not pre-made. They're just wooden toys, silks, the opportunity to finger knit. She could tie her shoes at 4. Amazing. She came home and said, "I know how to tie my shoes, and I can finger knit, Mommy." And I'm thinking, really? I didn't know how to do that at 4. But it's just, we saw her blossom with a lot of the outdoor play, opportunities for open-ended creativity type of play. So just to bounce off of what Beatrice is saying as well, as we search for the path for our daughter for her education, and also appreciating what this school is doing and what this community is doing. I do have a couple things here that I had saved just because they spoke to me. And this one article is "Why Children Aren't Behaving and What You Can Do About It." I'm not going to read the whole thing. I just thought it was interesting that they say parents and teachers struggle daily with difficult behavior from the children in their lives. And this person says 3 factors contributed mightily to this crisis. And it says, first, how and how much kids, I don't know why that's a typo in here, kids are allowed to play has changed. Second, their access to technology and social media has exploded. And then finally, children are too unemployed. She doesn't simply mean the occasional summer job for a high school teen. The term is a big tent, and she used it to include household jobs that can even help toddlers build self-confidence and a sense of community. So helping in the classroom as a young child with different opportunities to become kind of a leader or to help a teacher, help each other. So that was one thing that I read. And then the other article was talking about children's ability to move and play are being restricted more than ever. And I know from my time in elementary school, which was ages and eons ago, that we had different types of outdoor equipment to play on. And today they're saying, oh, no climbing, no running, no spinning, be careful. And I understand that we want to keep our children safe. Of course, we all do. However, some of these things are coming into proprioception, sensory types of things, and we're seeing more and more children that are having needs in the sensory area. And it's saying here that a study showed that the average child spends 8 hours a day in front of a screen, and adolescents are spending an average of 11 hours in front of a screen. Below here, it does say, in order for kids to listen, focus, learn to sit still for a period of time, they must develop both proprioception and vestibular sense. The most critical time to develop a child's proprioception and vestibular sense is before age 6. So they're saying, again, that play is coming into play here, and I'm trying to find where they had this listed. But it basically said that they should have about 5 hours a day of outdoor play or free play or creative play. Obviously, that's not going to happen in a classroom setting. We get that. There's a lot of time before and after school as well. But to hopefully open up a conversation about possible changes to some of the early childhood direction and the way the classrooms and the curriculum are set up to allow for more of that pretend play, creative play, open-ended type of play. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Okay. Thank you very much for to all three of you for sharing your thoughts. So we will move on to 8 on our agenda, report from the superintendent.
Okay, so Ray, I've covered a few things, but I did want to thank everyone who came out to vote yesterday on the budget. As many of you know, the budget passed with 66% support, 553 yes votes, and 266 no votes. And I really celebrate that it passed in all 3 communities, which is evidence about, I think, how supportive all 3 of our communities that make up the RSU are when it comes to educating our students. I do not take this for granted and truly appreciate the combined efforts of the staff, board, and community in getting this budget passed. We do look forward to growing a stronger RSU through this newly adopted budget while continuing to reflect on our budget process with the goal of having even more voters in the future being able to support our request. And I think I promised to give the board an update today on the our move with the Laugh and Learn pre-K program. It has been housed at Moore Street School for the last several years, but because of an increase in enrollment there, we've kind of outgrown that space. And so it's going to be moved to Mass Landing School, and we're really excited about that move and the opportunities that it may provide for our older elementary students to mentor our youngest students. And I just did want to let the board know that we explored a lot of different options, which included putting a portable at Moore Street School and housing the pre-K there. We talked about moving a different program, maybe one of the specials or a different grade to the portable at Moore Street School and allowing the Laugh and Learn pre-K to stay where they currently are. We looked at all of our other schools throughout the district, including the high school, to see if they might have space, but it really was Mass Landing that has the most possibilities around for the Laugh and Learn. And you know, initially we looked at the library over there because we felt like that would address 2 problems, because as many of you know, the library at Mass Landing is on 2 different floors, which creates some supervision challenges. And so we really thought it was going to be a win-win until we priced out what that would cost. And when the price tag came in around $100,000, we felt like that was cost prohibitive. So we went back around the table again and decided to now move it to what is currently the computer lab at Mass Landing, and that will be moved to a different space at Mass Landing, and this will only require some additional playground equipment to be installed. So that's our plan going forward, and we feel like we're on target to have that kind of all in place at the beginning of July. And we do have a lot to celebrate tonight with the boys baseball team, as Rhea mentioned, so I hope we have a lot of you come out to support our Falcons in this state playoff. I also wanted to report that at Freeport High School, there's a group called Cyber Gems that's made up of Dina Arison, Leah Ruzeski, Taylor Harris, and Rachel Packard. They qualified for a national championship of the Girls Go Cyber Start cyber security competition, and they walked away with $500 prize for being the top scoring team from Maine. And I would say that was no small feat. There was over 10,000 girls across 27 states that took part in the competition, so that's great. I also want to congratulate the Freeport High School's varsity softball team and the boys varsity lacrosse. Both will be the recipients of the MPA Sportsmanship Banner. And for me, there is no higher honor than to receive an award by distinguishing ourselves through acts of sportsmanship, integrity, and etiquette. And I know from personal experience, it's always easy to be graceful when you're winning, and when you're losing, sometimes that's more challenging. So I think when you receive this award, it really shows that our students have kind of internalized those core values. So kudos to the softball team and the lacrosse team for this honor. We are going to be presenting our strategic plan tonight, and our facilitator of that process, Mary Jane McCalman, is here to help with that, and so we're excited to be looking at that process. And Rhea was also on that with that group, so I'm hoping that she might still be here for a little bit of it, maybe. And then 142 of our students graduated this past Sunday, and I felt like the ceremony went really well, and our very own Rhea helped sing at the graduation, and it was just very beautiful. And I'm not quite as sappy as our assistant superintendent, Cynthia Alexander, but I'll tell you, Rhea, that she was crying by the end of the song. I was moved, but she had like tears of something. And then I just have some resignations to report tonight. Rose Lawrence, the music teacher at MLS, has resigned. Paul White, a kindergarten teacher at Morris Street. Kim Best, who's our payroll bookkeeper at the central office, and Amy Dresser is a Mass Landing ed tech. And lastly, as you already know, Cheryl Morse decided to retire, and we celebrated her tonight. Included in your packet is the Board of Directors meeting schedule, and I encourage you to put those dates in your calendar, with the exception of Erica, as soon as possible. You can still come, yeah. And lastly, as Michelle mentioned tonight, is Erica's last board meeting, and I really would like to thank you for stepping in when Naomi left us, and we wondered how we were going to fill those big shoes, and you've just done a wonderful job with that, Erica. And although you decided not to run again, I hope if the need arises again in the future that you would consider the possibility, as I know I've really enjoyed getting to know you and feel that you have always considered in your short time here on the board what's best for our kids and the RSU when deciding how to vote on any single issue. So you will be missed, but thank you. And one more round. And that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. My piles in right order here.
Okay.
Okay, so now we are moving on to finance. Michelle.
In your packet, you should have a purple sheet with the financials. So currently, we have ended about 3/4% lower than we were last year at this time, which I think is a good thing. That means that we're closer to getting to our 3% undesignated fund balance. I am still currently working on projections because, our June is exceptionally busy with the retirements and payouts and things like that. So I am working on the projections, and I hope to have that to the Finance Committee ASAP. But I don't anticipate that we'll be far out of reach of that 3% undesignated fund balance at this point in time. So there's nothing outstanding at this point. There's nothing that I see that's concerning. And I'm anticipating us to have a great audit this year because of it.
It just occurred to me, I had a quick question I probably should have asked in the Finance Committee meeting. Do we need to transfer any money? Do we need a meeting at the end of the month for that?
At this point in time, we do not.
Okay. So you'll let us know if you need that?
I will let you know if anything.
Okay.
Yep.
Any other questions for Michelle? Thank you. Okay, board comments, committee reports, board information exchange, agenda requests. One other we forgot to thank is our student reps. So Rhea and Clay,
Oh, yes, we did forget to do that.
So, because I don't know how theirs works, if it's just a school year thing or if they go until the next election. I don't know how that works for you guys, but in case it's not that way, in case it's just the school year, thank you for your participation. And these are long meetings, and you guys have full plates, and it's been great to have your perspective. So, thank you.
Yes.
So that was my only board information exchange. Anybody else have anything to exchange?
I have one Clarion left, if anyone would like a paper copy. Otherwise, it is digitally available, and I'll send that link to everybody tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa Blyer, for those.
Valley?
So it's not a comment or a request, but a question. Are we going to talk about the calendar? Because I don't see it on the agenda.
Do we typically vote on it? I don't think we typically vote on it. But why do you have
but
it?
I have a question.
Okay, yeah.
So the question is, after you present your budget, Becky, how many meetings are we listening to reports from the directors and the principals? Is it 3 meetings usually?
It's usually 3. I think it's usually 3.
3, okay. So that leaves us 2 meetings for deliberations. Do people think that's enough? I always like to have a little more, and then we can not use all the opportunities, but it's hard to add later on a meeting once it's set in stone.
I mean, we've already got 3 in February and 3 in March. I'm not sure where we would fit another.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the 4th one in February is vacation week.
And not necessarily add another, but maybe just slide everything down 1 meeting to add. So instead of adopt on March 25th, we can could we adopt it on
The other
April
issue
8th?
with, that's what Ginny thinks of that. There goes the papers. I think the issue is also the printing of the booklet that goes to every household. I know this year, had we not adopted, they couldn't guarantee that they would be able to print it and get it mailed in time to have at everyone's house before the meetings. So I think that's sort of the, am I correct in that this year?
Yep.
Okay.
So you're going to adopt the...
You're going to have to go to the microphone, Ginny. So, okay, so her point is this is just the meeting calendar.
Okay.
So our budget calendar, when we do our budget items, we'll actually look at in October, I think is usually when we set that schedule. So,
Okay.
She does not want to go to the microphone.
That's okay. She doesn't need to.
Yeah.
I think we have our answer. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I will point out to everybody that our first reconvening, well, after next week, but after the summer is our retreat on the 28th. It's a Wednesday. Usually that one we meet earlier. I think we usually meet at 5. Does that sound right? If anyone's got a nice retreat place to have it, other than the library. I mean, it's usually at the library.
Maybe try to mix it up.
Yeah, do it on the track or something. So anyway, so August 28th, that's our retreat date. So that will be our, that's usually, we start a little bit earlier. I think we usually, it's,
dinner.
Yep. And it's a little bit longer because we talk about our goals and plans for the year. So make sure everybody gets that one on their calendar. All right. Any other questions, comments? All right. Finance Committee. Kate.
Okay, Finance Committee met May 8th, 2019, and we also met tonight. We're working on finalizing a presentation to bring to the board, maybe the second or third business meeting that we have next year. And so we set additional, I think it was 2 additional meetings to occur in July to get that done, so it's ready for next fall.
All right. Policy. Candy.
Yes, we met May 3rd. You have the orange piece in your packet, and we also met on June 7th. On May 3rd, we looked at some policies where there were no changes. We did look at the concussion policy, which was tabled tonight and will be discussed later. And we also made the changes to the fundraising activity one that the board had suggested, and that's on for second read tonight. And we set several policies on the agenda for September. When we met on June 7th, we kind of looked at what we'd done this year and planned for next year. We went over 43 policies this year. And yeah, well, all of you too, looking at them. And as Cynthia has said, that we like to be on a 5-year cycle to get everything on that kind of a cycle, and there are a few more that need to be done to do that. We looked at the list for next year, calendar, all of that kind of thing. We looked at pairing some policies that looked like they could be put together now, so there weren't so many separate ones. And that's the only other thing is we said that the bullying policies, looking at all of those is in progress right now, and we'll look at those in the fall. I don't know, Kate and Maddie, did you have anything else to add? That was pretty much it.
So I had some suggestions to ACAA, ACAAR, and ACAB, and I know those aren't going to come up.
Say those again.
The first, the harassment and discrimination ones. So I don't know if the best thing for me is to just send those to the policy committee, but I wanted to suggest that those be on the calendar in September, and I can just provide you with the changes that I would suggest. Is that, or however that would work?
Yeah, I would forward them to. I would probably send them to Cynthia, right?
Yeah.
Just because she sort of, facilitates that committee, and then she can share it with the policy committee with the recommendations, and then they can make the call on whether they want to bring it back to review it and add those.
Okay, thanks. Sounds good.
So the ACAA and ACAAR, were those the two?
Yep, and the ACAB.
So the 3 harassment.
The 3 harassment ones.
Okay. Yeah. Send the suggestions to Cynthia, and we'll talk about them.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Okay, so on to 11, policy review. So A, we have tabled until the fall, and then B are the 3 for second read. So without Cynthia, will you be?
Well, are we? As we've said before, we're not commenting. I mean, I think we're all set for the second read unless you have further questions, and then I'm going to be looking to the policy committee to answer.
Okay. Are there additional questions after reading through the second reads? Yeah.
Budget adoption policy for our process for ready for that one. Okay. And the petty cash account one.
Okay, is your mic on, Candy? Is your mic on?
Oh, I'm sorry. And then we have the fundraising activity, student fundraising activity one. And this one, when we incorporated your suggestions, and this policy was pretty much rewritten from the beginning. So, any other questions or suggestions?
Yeah.
I don't have a question or a suggestion. I just have a comment to thank you very much for including the feedback that the board suggested last meeting. And I really appreciate, in particular, the addition of the community building piece for the schools and the district. I do feel that this will address, or at least help minimize situations that are awkward for students who come from less wealthy backgrounds. And I do encourage all the principals who will actually have the authority and the responsibility of administering these fundraisers to be really aware that some of the kids may feel disenfranchised or even resentful when we have competitive fundraisers. So I really appreciate the fact that everyone is on board and listening and trying to make a comfortable situation for all students in all the schools when fundraisers are conducted. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
I went and read the student wellness policy.
The student what, I'm sorry?
Student wellness.
The student wellness
Yep.
policy, which we were trying to kind of create some consistencies with. And something struck me, two sentences really struck me in the student wellness policy. The first one is that students should receive consistent nutrition messages throughout the schools, including classrooms, cafeteria, and school-home communications. I don't feel that cookie dough is consistent with what is being taught in health classes, what's being provided in the lunches, lunchrooms, breakfast or lunch. The second sentence in this existing policy is schools will support healthful eating by students and encourage parents and guardians to provide healthy meals for their children by providing consistent nutrition messages and information and by cooperation with other agencies and organizations. I see a drastic lack of consistency with some of our existing fundraisers that are asking students to sell foods that would not be recommended by our nutrition director, would not be recommended by our school physician, likely if that person were asked, and are being taught specifically to avoid in health and nutrition classes. So I personally, for the sake of supporting the student wellness policy that already exists, I would advocate for changing the item 12 in the A section. It currently says, in the A section of the policy that we're talking about tonight, which is fundraising, the sentence that's currently in there says student organizations will be encouraged to engage in fundraising projects that support student wellness or student wellness activities. I think the language in there needs to be stronger. I think that
it's the top, it's 12, page 3 of 3, it's at the top.
Because this is what we talked about last time, and this was
it is
the
what we talked about
suggestion.
last time, but when I went and read the student wellness policy, that it's actually already school policy that we should be sending consistent messages about student wellness throughout all our programs. I feel like we're not even following this policy, and so I'm uncomfortable with the weakness of the language in 12 because it's sort of advocating that it's allowing us to go against an existing policy. I just, so what I prefer to be there is something more like, when food items are included in these programs it should be run by our nutrition director who is qualified to evaluate whether or not the item that's being peddled meets federal child nutrition standards.
I would be comfortable with that person reviewing. I would be comfortable with the health teacher in the school reviewing. Is this consistent with our school messaging? Are we being consistent as a district with the messages that we're telling these students? And then lastly, so these are, I guess I'm saying I would advocate for the nutrition director, the district physician, and or the school's health teacher to take a look at what item is being ensold and just say yes or no. This supports student wellness consistently with our district practices or not. Jen.
So the thing I have a hard time with that is that I think that that's an extremely subjective approach, because I think that, as you know, I don't have a physician that tells me, like, don't ever give your kids a cookie type of a situation. So I just have a hard time seeing how we're going, like, where do you draw the line?
Well, at my physician's appointments throughout the childhood years of my children, we would get information from the doctor's office, which I'm sure is some sort of physician's federal, alliance or something, about what to eat, what not to eat. Are you eating? I mean, just today I was at a doctor's appointment, literally just today. Have you eaten, fruits and vegetables today? How many servings have you had? When my kids were super young, there was consistent messaging about not drinking sugary soft drinks and juices frequently, and you should be drinking water throughout the day. There are codified, consistent messages about health and wellness existing in our physicians' offices, in the national federal nutrition programs that we participate in and have to follow by law. And even in the, we have learning results, health programming that is consistent throughout the state. I personally haven't read through it all, so I don't know what's in there yet. I'd be willing to do that or to talk to our health teachers. I believe that there is a point of non-subjectivity, that there's enough critical mass of general guidelines and information by sources that we're already following that we should just be consistent with throughout our district's practices.
I feel like the language as it's written is encouraging them to promote wellness doesn't shut down the ability for other things. It encourages, doing jump rope for heart, activities, things that are good for their wellness, but it doesn't eliminate the opportunity for, if they were to sell a pie or cookie dough, because I think one of the things that we do teach is moderation, right? Completely excluding anything isn't necessarily healthy either. So I'm not sure that, just by virtue of selling something like that, we're necessarily encouraging daily consumption. I feel like we can be within the spirit of our wellness policy, and we can be within the spirit of this fundraising policy by encouraging, when they're considering them, don't automatically have every fundraiser be, Hershey bars or whatever, but
well, why don't we allow our school lunch program to serve?
They do serve cookies.
Everything.
They serve cookies.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, let's let
right?
the nutrition
They
director.
do, right? I mean, there are certain requirements, right? They have to have a certain amount of fiber or something, and
Right,
But
so I'm not saying we write in the policy no cookies. I'm saying we should write in the policy that we have some measure of creating district consistency for the messaging about wellness. We have language in this policy that is creating protections so that we don't, for example, like, not even in the wellness thing, we're saying, hey, we don't want to approach, the same, businesses every day because we've got 5 different organizations. So we're saying, hey, let's run it by the superintendent's office so we all make sure that we're, as a district, we're thinking as a district. We're not thinking as one-offs. So I've said my piece, so I'll just let you guys vote on it or whatever. But
Maddie.
I think wellness is an extremely complex and evolving topic. And as I've said before, while I love sugar, I also understand its toxicity and have striven in my family to limit its intake. But the evolution of the conversation around wellness also includes food phobia and body image problems. And it's coming more and more to light these days. And I think that's something that's really important in young people as well. And I think it's really challenging for us as a district to try to make those kinds of decisions about where exactly we stand. I think it's important for those topics, the broad spectrum of those topics, to be discussed in the classroom. But I think for us to try to say, well, our stance on it is low sugar or low fat, or I think it's tricky, and like I said, evolving. I tend to be in favor of more general language in our policy making, and trust the general direction of our administrators. I mean, every time you've brought it up, it gives me pause. I mean, there's so much I agree with, but I feel like I think we should be more general in our policy making. I like the language the way that it is.
Belly.
I agree with the sentiment that Lindsay's speaking to, and I've volunteered at many of the fundraisers where I'm appalled that I'm at the table just serving sugary drinks nonstop to the same kids throughout the whole night. And oftentimes, it's the same kids who just come and eat not just one brownie, but 8 brownies. And I agree that there's a balance that needs to be found when we do our fundraisers. I'm also a proponent of leaving the language the way it is, because I think it addresses basically the spirit of what we want to say. But at the same time, I do think that the message needs to go to the groups and principals and anyone who is in charge of fundraisers to try to balance what we serve to our students. So if you're going to serve brownies, why don't we also serve fruit or something else? Oftentimes, we only have very sugary sweets, baked goods, and very sugary drinks and pizza, and that is it. That's all the kids can choose from. And I think, like Lindsay, that is not consistent with the message that we want to send. So I wouldn't change the policy, but I think we really need to make a much bigger effort to send a consistent message to our kids.
It's interesting because you guys are referencing two different, like you're talking about actual fundraisers with serving kids, and I think you're referencing like selling items, but I think, I think the spirit is similar. Yeah. No. And I don't disagree, right? I mean, I don't think, always selling something that's not necessarily the healthiest option is the road we should take, even if it might yield the most money for the fundraiser. But I just don't feel like it's our place to not allow it. We have to, I think, allow some choice. And if for your family you're not comfortable selling something like that, then as the fundraiser or eating it, then that's clearly, we have it in here that you're not penalized for not participating for whatever reason, because you don't like to sell things, because you don't like the brownies, for whatever reason, you're not penalized in any way. So okay, so Kate.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve policies DBG, DJC, and JJE.
Second from Candy. Any other questions or comments?
Wait, do we have to vote on all 3 of them together?
Well, typically we vote at them that way.
We can separate them if people don't feel comfortable doing them all at once. We have done in the past.
Right. So do people feel a sense that they'd like to split them, or are they comfortable voting together? You want to split them? Okay. So
we do.
Okay, so you could make an amendment to separate the policies. Okay.
I'd like to make an amendment that we vote separately on the policies tonight.
Is there a second for the amendment?
I'll second that.
Okay, so we're going to vote on the amendment, which is a yes vote is you'd like to separate the 3 policies out. A no vote is you'd like to keep them together. Okay. All those in favor of the amendment? Okay. Opposed? Yeah. What's John doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. Okay. So that fails. So we are back to the original motion on the floor, which is the 3 policies as a slate, as written. Any other questions? All those in favor? Opposed? All right, I think she's got it. Okay, those pass. Thank you. All right, unfinished business, overview and discussion of the RSU5 strategic plan.
I'm just doing a clarifying. Mary Jane, what time do you have to leave? 8:50. Okay. All right, so here we go. So in your package, you'll see a strategic planning process summary and a copy of the draft goals. And I'm going to start with just doing a quick overview. I think the board has been supportive in establishing a strategic plan and us hiring a facilitator in Mary Jane. With the purpose to provide a clear sense of direction for our system and a set of goals to guide the work of the district over the next 5 years. We established a strategic planning committee. I was on that committee along with Cynthia Alexander, Julie Nickerson, Valley, Lindsay, and Candy from the board. We had Rhea as our student rep. We had Seth Koenig and Jonathan Dawson and as community members, Nancy Drolet from the association. And just a reminder that our purpose was to engage the comprehensive RSU5 community in a process to gather information from all stakeholders to guide the work of establishing an updated strategic direction for our schools and to oversee the development of a revised strategic plan that utilized community input. The Strategic Planning Committee has conducted its work over the past 15 months, beginning in March of 2018, and through June we've met. And then a summary of the steps in our process are kind of summarized in your attached document, and Mary Jane will talk a little bit about that. The committee functioned as, we believe, a very highly effective group committed to high quality work. They were diligent in engaging the community, parents, staff, and students to make sure that their voices were heard. They paid strict attention to the messages and the data gathered from all stakeholders to construct the new mission and vision. And they kept that new mission, vision, and beliefs about learning before them as they established the goals to be included in the document you have this evening. As a result of their commitment to quality, you have a very ambitious and tightly aligned mission, vision, and core beliefs, and an action plan to direct the work. And I'm going to have Mary Jane come and talk a few minutes about the process that we went through, and then I'll talk about the goals.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here. I have to say it was a pleasure to work with this committee. We started our work a year ago, March, and we had fun, but we worked very hard. I think I counted, and there were almost 40 different meetings involved in this that members of the strategic planning committee were involved in, either actual planning committee meetings themselves or community meetings that we were running as a part of this process. So they really put their shoulder to the wheel and worked very hard for well over a year now in doing this work. I have to say the committee took it very seriously. They were very thorough. Sometimes it seemed like, are we going to get to clarity about this issue that we may want to include in the plan or not? But it was conversation well worth it, a conversation that was necessary. They did, as Becky just said, stay very close to the input. I mean, we didn't do just one series of feedback, input gathering from the community, but we did two. We did one series of input activities back in the spring of 2019. I get my years wrong. 2018, a year ago, spring. We did a survey, we had meetings, we gathered as much input as we could, and we used that data, analyzed that data, even invited community members to come to meetings to analyze it once we had the data organized, to say, what do you read as the themes in this data? And we based that revised mission statement and vision statement on the information that we were getting from the community. It's what they valued. It's what they wanted to see in the mission and vision. We worked that through, and in January you approved that mission and vision by vote of the board. And then the committee went out again, a second time, to gather input from the community to say, here's the mission and vision. We listened. We wrote a mission and vision. We brought it to the board. It's been accepted. Now, what do you think would be important pieces of work to do to achieve that? So there was a little bit different questions asked than obviously the first survey, but we had parents, we had students, we had staff respond to that series of questions as well. So, typically there is that first big open up, gather all the data from the community, gather all the opinions, gather all the thoughts, but there isn't always that second one. And to be very thorough, this committee did that and paid very close attention to the information that we gathered. So I think what you have here, and even as I sat here tonight and I heard two ladies get up, they left just a couple minutes ago, I wish they had stayed, talking about the need for free play time. We heard that in the data, and you're going to see it in the plan. So I was just sort of struck by, oh, wait, don't leave. I wanted them to see that they weren't the only ones who were concerned about that issue. There is a piece in this plan about addressing sort of the schedule of the day and allowing meaningful free play to re-energize for learning. It's one of the goals in this plan. So just an example of how I hope that this plan does represent current thinking in the community and things that the community values. And this committee worked very hard to stay tightly aligned to all of that. So we are here tonight to have you look at the goals, and I'll let Becky go through those goals. I just mentioned that one. But as the process facilitator, I just have to say a very high regard for this group. They worked very hard and very effectively, and I was really happy to be working with them. It was fun to do. So, any questions about process, I'm happy to answer. And I'll be here as long as I can during the discussion about the goals themselves. We are still, just FYI in terms of process, so we have the goals finalized, we have the objectives finalized, and for every one of the objectives that you have in a packet, we have a detailed plan of action, which is only in draft form at this point. We promised the committee that before anybody else saw this work, that they would see it. And we haven't quite got, we have one more round via email to get their approval on all the details. It's when will this goal be achieved, who's going to be in charge of it, what's the evidence we'll accept. So for every one of the objectives you see, there's a document like this that spells out exactly what's going to be done by who and by when, with what evidence to prove that we're making progress toward this goal. So I just wanted you to see that, an example of this backup. So, okay. I'll be right here until I
We don't have that
She
yet.
was holding up something.
No, you're not going to get that tonight.
Oh, that's what she's saying.
No,
Okay,
no.
so
The committee will get it first.
Oh, okay, sorry.
we have just started drafting that, and our committee hasn't even seen that.
Right.
But that is the amount of detail that we'll get into. What we're asking you to consider and possibly vote on tonight is just the broader strategic goals. I mean, as you know, we've had that kind of support document, even though we haven't had a 5-year plan, but even with our yearly plan, we've had the backup document, but you voted on the broader goals because it could be the backup document, the detail, will need to be tweaked, and we don't want to have to bring that to the board every time I decide, hey, we want to move that up or back the timeline. But I, of course, would keep you informed about that during the mid-year update and stuff. So I'm just going to walk you through the 4 kind of topics, and you have a visual that I just passed out that shows that we have our mission and vision, and then we have these 4 broader areas that we have chosen based upon the data to help us accomplish that mission and vision. So the first strategic goal really is around all RSU 5 students experiencing a joyful learning climate that is safe, nurturing, and fosters curiosity. And we decided upon 3 different objectives below that overarching topic: to strengthen and align the supports and systems to meet the needs of all learners in RSU 5, the social-emotional supports. We heard from the data that we want more opportunities to ensure that student voice is encouraged, and I think, we have been doing that by having student reps on the board. I think we've done a good job in the last few years of just trying to add student reps on other district committees like the proficiency base, but we feel like there still is a ways to go and that we can expand on those. And then the third one is the topic that was the topic during public comment, was to maximize student opportunities for physical movement and adequate breaks to allow students to refresh and recharge for learning. And then in the document that Mary Jane just gave you a glimpse of that you can't read in detail, I will say that basically under each one of these topics that the steps, the action steps really kind of fall into a pattern. So it will be things like identifying what we're currently doing in these areas, identifying the gaps that may exist, exploring the options to fill those gaps, and then developing a plan and recommending to the board the places we want to implement, and then to have at some point an evaluation of that implementation. So that's kind of how that works in that document. The second strategic goal is around the teaching and learning, which is at the heart of what we are doing. And I think the piece that really popped in the data around this is that the community recognizes that we're trying to educate our students to the best of our ability, but that they really want us to work towards more student-centered learning. And you can see that there's an asterisk there, and when you go to the end of the document, there is a definition of what our committee, because that's really kind of vague and it's kind of educational jargon, and what student-centered learning means to one person may differ from another. And so we are defining it as being active engagement, more hands-on learning, community-based, collaborative, personalized to meet the learner's needs, to have strong supports for learner success, and also that learner voice and choice, and it being interdisciplinary, and recognizing time is the factor, and it'll take some students longer than others to achieve the different standards. So under there we have 5 different objectives because this is the heart of what we're here for. So we're going to look at our instructional practices. We're going to review, research, and explore options for the implementation of student-centered instructional practices. Objective 2.2 is around the curricular and extracurricular choices and expanding those opportunities based upon our students' interests and needs. Then under staff, we want to provide strong support for professional practices that foster collaboration and staff voice while strengthening the instruction to meet the needs of our learners. The 4th one is around ensuring that student growth is measured and communicated in meaningful ways and responds to the stakeholder feedback. And then we want a system where we're really establishing a formalized system for annual identification of goals for the improvement of student achievement, that we really are looking at trends over time and how we're doing and where we need to improve. The 3rd primary topic under the strategic plan is school community relations. And we believe that all RSU 5 school parent community partnerships are based on strong communication and active involvement to support student success. And I think you heard Willow talk about that. And that I do believe we live in a community that wants to partner and support us in any way that they can. So we want to expand the avenues to distribute information about our schools and seek feedback. We want to engage our learners in community-based learning when possible, both in the classroom and out in the community. The more we can get them out, we think that's great. And then we want to encourage and support strong staff-parent partnerships to enhance student success. And then our last area is really around finance and operations, because we know that's key to staying on track with the other 3. And so we just wrote that pretty broad, and that says that RSU 5 has well-developed and refined finance, facilities, transportation, and food service to support the learning of all students. We want our kids to have quality facilities, so that will really include looking at a long-term plan about what we need for our upgrades. The second one is one we've had for the last couple of years, that we want to attract and retain our highly effective staff. We just were discussing the other one, that it is obvious that our board and our schools and everyone is interested in improving and ensuring that we have the highest quality school nutrition program as possible. And then objective 4.4 is looking at transportation, which I think one of the things that kind of emerged in the data was looking at things like the late bus to like Pownell, to ensure that kids who want to participate in extracurricular programs are able to do that. And then our last objective is around short and long-term financial planning. So that is a quick snapshot, and we're eager to take your questions and your feedback. Not only me, there's Mary Jane, Raya's here, Valley's here, Candy's here, Lindsay has been on it, and Julie also served on the committee. So you could ask questions of any of us.
Kate?
I would like to know, Becky, how do you see the strategic plan working together with the board goals? So does it now become possibly a goal of the board to just continue implementation of the strategic plan? How do we weave them?
Well, I think what we've been doing for the last 3 years is really having a yearly look, and I think one of the things the board is really interested in is, at the same time that we're looking at what's up for next year, let's look long-term for 5 years. So I think it will be a review of this strategic plan. And
is it possible that the stuff in that work plan that we haven't seen yet might flow to our yearly goals, right? So those are like the action plans. So maybe that's our yearly goal
Exactly.
that we pull from.
Right, or that's going to be the backup document, but I think we'll be looking at the retreat of whether to tweak it and move some things that may have, you put in this document that you'll get to that in year 2022, but we feel like it's more urgent to get to that now. Because I think once you see the backup plan at the retreat, that there's no way to do all of this and let's do these other 3 board goals.
That's kind of what I was wondering, because we've had some goals like the implementation of proficiency-based education. We've had the fiscal goals, which aren't really covered here, where we normally set a goal about using resources wisely. But that's not covered by the strategic plan, so that's why I was kind of wondering, like, are we going to still be able as a board to set those kinds of goals, or are we going to have to just adopt the strategic plan and work only from that?
I think that, and I may look to Mary Jane to tell us what she has seen other boards do. I mean, I just worry about the capacity, but I think the fiscal things I think when we talk about that backup plan, that's where we'll tweak that in August. Because there's not anything that prevents us from putting something about proficiency into the teaching and learning, is what I would say. Mary Jane, I'm kind of looking at you for just some feedback, having done this in numerous districts.
I mean, most systems have boards who have retreats. They construct some goals, and then there is a strategic plan as well. And the way they intersect is that part of your role and responsibility in the system is to set direction. You charged the superintendent to get a strategic planning process going, and this is the outcome of it. Your job specifically in relation to the plan is making sure that you check on it. Make sure you say, how are we doing? I need to know the progress reports. This is the work that has been charged to the system. We now have sort of fleshed it out. We've got the goals, and your role is to keep checking on it to make sure it's getting done. You have, in addition to this work, some other pieces of work that are uniquely your own. So you're not in the midst of accomplishing all of these goals, hands-on, but it is your role to say, are we doing this work? Are we doing it well? Are we making progress? Where are we? And as Becky said, there may be some need for some tweaking now and then. And that's why, when we wrote the detail level of this plan, it was for the first year and a half only, not for the full 5 years, because you can't project out that far at that kind of detail level and really have it stick. If it's a dynamic plan and you get moving on some things will go faster than you think, and other things are going to have obstacles in the way you didn't anticipate. So you have to be nimble in trying to implement a plan like this. So we set, I think as far as we can see, is maybe through next summer, the end of, not this summer coming up, but the one after that maybe that's September. And so all the goals that the detailed goals I'm writing, the detailed action plans I'm writing, really go out that far. At that specificity level for that reason. So some tweaking, yes, but you don't have to have hands-on engagement with every one of these goals and getting it done. It's just check to see that it is getting done.
It also strikes me that if something arises during a school year that we feel a sense of urgency around, this gives us a framework to weigh it against. Is this truly something urgent, or is it just a distraction from what we've already heard in the deeper work that's taken 2 years? That does this align with one of these 4 bucket areas? And
right.
I think that'll be helpful.
Objective 2.4 under, I think that's teaching and learning. Yeah, teaching and learning, assessment, grading, and reporting. I'm a little bit confused by that sentence. Ensure that student growth is measured and communicated in meaningful ways and responds to stakeholder feedback. What does it mean that student growth responds to stakeholder feedback? I'm not sure what the intention
The way
is there.
it's measured and communicated, that's what you need to respond to.
I.e. what we did last year with the change.
Yes, with the PBE.
Sure.
From 1 to 4 back to 1 to 100.
I think that's why we wrote it that way. Is that true?
So
I think then that what you mean then isn't and, it's that respond to. Because the way that I read that sentence, maybe I'm reading it the wrong way, but when I read it, that's what it meant to me. So it's ensure that student growth is measured and communicated in meaningful ways that respond to stakeholder feedback? Because, okay.
Small thing, in the glossary, there are 3 little grammar things, punctuation things. For the last comma should be replaced with an ellipses. There should be a period at the end, and then the first ellipses should have 1 more period on the end of it to make it 3 periods rather than 2. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Is it your English final you have tomorrow that you've been studying for? Oh, yes, there's no opening parentheses. So while we're on that definition of student-centered learning, I'm sure it's sort of implied in some of these, but the word we heard a lot both today and when I recall doing that sort of data review from the feedback was the term the experiential learning, and maybe that's what hands-on is. I was just wondering if there's a reason that word didn't make it in, because we saw it a lot.
I guess I'll give my opinion on that, and then anybody else on the committee. But I think for some, the expeditionary experiential means a kind of specific program, and so we tried to capture it in different ways so that we're not focused on one type of program, and that's why it's got hands-on or community-based, because we feel like that does capture that sentiment. But do you feel otherwise?
I guess maybe for me, I don't have that connection to a specific program, so I don't assume that it would mean one of those things. So for me, I'd like to see the word in there, but I trust your judgment on it. So just.
Well, can I ask you, is experiential in your mind different than hands-on, or are they synonyms?
They're different to me. Because hands-on to me is like what we're doing in our STEM labs, right? Where they're, working with the robots and that Maddie and I fail at, and they're really good at. Whereas experiential to me, in my mind, is more going out and, job shadowing, doing those type of things. Thank you, Rhea. Yeah, so, but that's just my interpretation of the word. But, that was my guess when I saw those in there, that was sort of meant to mean the same thing, and I was just curious if there was a reason that word didn't make it in, and if it's because people, sort of make a connection to a specific program. I'm okay with that, so leave it the way it is. Mar.
So I want to thank everyone who worked on this, because I know it was a lot of work, so thank you all for doing this. And I think it's just really great and thoughtful. On objective 1.3, the daily schedule, and I think this does relate a little bit to the public comment that we got tonight. I love that this is in here, the maximize student opportunities for physical movement. I have 2 young kids. Clearly, I see that every day of my life, the importance of it. And for me, I don't know if this involves a language tweak or the supporting document that you said we'd be looking at during our retreat, but here we have the concept that physical movement allows kids to refresh and recharge for learning. And to me, especially for certain learners, I feel like that could be the hardest work that they're doing. They're learning their social emotional engagement or that open-ended play. So this physical movement and this break in their day is maybe a break from instruction, but it is still, I would like us to sort of have this recognition as an RSU that that's hard work still for kids, and that's part of their learning is these breaks that they're taking, even though they're playing or going on recess, especially maybe for our younger kids. It's still, that's learning. So the way we have it phrased here is that it's kind of a break from learning. And I think as the public commenters referenced tonight, it's part of learning for young kids, an important part, I think.
I think that's a great point.
You'd almost say stop right after adequate breaks, period, and strike the rest.
I had a question on finance and operations, 4.2.
Before we move on,
yeah.
I guess I want
Oh,
some
you want
direction
to?
there.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not answering it. I think that if you're wanting to revise that, then I hear what Maura's saying. I don't know that.
I mean, could you?
I don't know if I would want to just stop at breaks. I think I understand why Jeremy's like recommending it, but I think even what the speakers were saying is that learning happens better if there's adequate breaks in there.
But also that
we don't want to just do breaks for breaks' sake, right? So for some kids, they do better when there's not too many breaks, right? So for some kids, they really struggle with unstructured time. But I don't know. Or we can take it back and talk about it as a committee, but are we expecting you to vote tonight?
Yep.
Anyway, so I'm wondering what other people on the committee are thinking.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I can offer up on that question is that this is reflecting the needs of all students, K through 12. So even though I totally agree that for the younger learners, the break is learning and that is instruction, when you're in 12th grade, you do take the break to refresh and recharge. So I don't know how we would make that distinction without writing a whole paragraph.
So what about something like maximize student opportunities for physical movement and adequate breaks to elevate learning? So whether it's part of the learning or whether it helps you learn after your break?
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
20 meetings fewer.
Yep.
Just to drive that point home, I'd be in favor of changing daily schedule as the objective to physical, just change it to physical movement or something, because I feel like it's not just a scheduling thing. I mean, you want to incorporate physical movement into the learning experience throughout the day, and it's not just like, okay, let's schedule 10 of them. I mean, it seems a little bit, I don't know, kind of... Yeah.
I think that's a good point. The only thing I do like about it saying daily schedule is because I think that I also would like this area to be somewhere that we could, just to throw out there, like a few minutes longer for lunch. You know what I mean? Like to just not have it be only for physical type breaks, maybe to like lengthen, reset, so I mean, I know what you're saying about daily schedule, but I think it's kind of more about like sort of slowing down in kind of all areas, not just increasing like physical. Because I'm not someone who like really does a lot of like I recharge by like maybe like sitting for a moment, right? So you know what I mean. But I love this being in here because I think that we just are so fast paced that I think this gives us an opportunity to look at all kinds of things during the day in order to like kind of pause a bit.
So one of the terms that was brought up tonight actually during public comment was unstructured learning. So I'm wondering could that be our objective 1.3 is unstructured learning? Would that encompass?
I may want to just read a couple of the action strategies that we have, and maybe that would help us. This is just like, again, I kind of hate to read all these because the committee hasn't seen them, but what we've kind of fleshed out is just identify and assess the effectiveness of all existing opportunities for physical movement and breaks at the classroom and school level. Identify areas in need of improvements and/or additional breaks. So we are trying to capture that for all kids. It's not about moving more, but it's just, how much of the time is like structured, and then explore and research effective practices in use in other schools with similar grade level spans. That gets to what Valerie was talking about, that you have to remember this is a plan for a pre-K through 12. And then we'll be reflecting on that and making our recommendations. But I can understand daily schedule kind of sounds boring, so I don't.
Yeah. How about breaks and movement? What that?
I do want to keep the word daily, though.
Yeah.
I think daily schedule is okay, because I think there's a lot of things that could be picked up in there. I think we could look at, hey, do we want to flip-flop the high school start time, because kids need more sleep when they're high schoolers. Like, there's a lot of different things that we hear, everybody's like cringing. Sorry, I didn't say it out loud. It was just an example. But I think there's a lot of things that daily schedule could encompass as a part of our climate and our culture that we want to potentially look at over the next 5 years. Yeah.
Right.
But, I understand that notion, but did that arise from the data and the work? I kind of feel like the intention of what's being developed arose from the, analysis of the data. Did sleep, I just feel like I hadn't heard that as part of the, it's not the strategic plan is supposed to reflect the inputs that had come so far in the process, so I guess I would put it to the people who developed these objectives. Is the daily schedule encompassing things like, school start time, was that part of the discussion?
Can I, Mary Jane, I know you have to leave, but could you speak to that as someone who analyzed the data most closely, or do you have a recommendation for a different heading there?
Well, and we don't have to have these headings in the formal plan. They were sort of labels that we were using to get our thoughts together, so they're not integral. What's important is the goal language, as opposed to the label on the top of it. But in terms of the data, there were a lot of specific mentions of need for movement, not just sitting, not just screen time, not just listening, not just reading. Those were relatively inactive parts of the day that people really wanted to see more opportunities for kids to move about, possibly as a part of the learning itself, but also as a break. So free play was a part of what they were looking for, as well as more, and we've said it before, active learning, so that it's both, it's some of both. And this one in particular addresses the need for sort of breaks to relieve a bit of stress and come back at learning again a bit refreshed. So that's where it came from. That's what people were looking for. Different at different levels. If it was elementary versus upper elementary versus middle versus high school, there were nuances in what people were saying, but generally it was looking for more opportunities, not to have sort of the day be a marathon, but have some breaks.
I want more than a daily break in movement. That makes it sound like...
Oh, it isn't.
Daily schedule works for daily schedule. Oh, maybe I just jumped. I was thinking, well, what about daily breaks in movement? But it's like, no, it's multiple. It's like incorporating breaks in movement. So I guess, we're back to daily schedule or breaks in movement or...
And I do think in the final document, we probably won't have those. Wouldn't you think? We don't have the finalized glossy document that's going to be on the internet.
Yeah, we don't need to have those labels there if you don't think they're needed and we don't think they're needed. The goals are what's important. So,
Maddie.
I'm fine with leaving it as it is. I feel we understand. I feel we understand what it means. I don't think it's that confusing, and I think it's in the implementation is where we need the real clarity.
Mm-hmm. Okay, do you have what you need on that, Becky?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my question on 4.2, attract and retain highly effective staff. So this is specifically in the goal about finance, facilities, transportation, and food. Are those the staff we're referencing here? Or is this all staff? Because if it's all staff, I don't think it belongs here.
So I think it's here because it really falls under human resources, right? So, maybe we add a word in the strategic goal, but.
That's what I would do. I think,
Yeah.
I think human HR should be added to that goal.
Okay.
To the broad goal.
Yeah, if it was in there, then I think
And
it's
actually, when I was doing some editing today, that's what I did. I was going to bring it to the committee.
Well, thank you.
That's okay. Good thing.
And then my last question was objective 2.5, the student achievement tracking. Is this, so formalized system for annual identification of goals for the improvement of student achievement, is this on a district or school level, or is this on an individual student level? I was a little confused.
Well, I think for a strategic plan, it's going, in the detail, it's going to be on all of those levels, but you're wanting to kind of track it on what I would call a district slash, I don't know about individual school, but elementary, middle school, high school.
Level. Yeah, grade level spans, which is how the sort of standardized testing is organized around those spans.
So this is basically our like the evolution of our scorecard.
Yes.
Okay.
And taking it to a next step of really formalizing, using all that good information to formulate improvement goals where needed. So, yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the goals? So what you're looking for from us right now? Sorry, this vote is to basically give you guys the go-ahead to continue the work to create the backup plans, and we will see the next iteration of this at our retreat?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
But also to approve the language as written.
Okay. So other than Rhea's grammar stuff in the glossary, and I think that was the only change, unless you wanted to take the, adding HR. Yeah.
Adding HR, and I think on 1.3, we changed that to elevate learning. And I think 2.4, we have in meaningful ways that respond to stakeholder feedback.
Yes.
I have one small one, but since we're on it, 3.2, spell out the word "and" in the classroom and out in the community.
Yeah. Yes. Well, those kind of little grammatical things, we will definitely.
Oh, right, because it was in 1.3. It's gone.
And I would say that you're voting on the content. I mean, I will definitely read this with a fine-tooth comb for like grammatical stuff.
Certainly before we put it on glossy paper.
Yes. Exactly.
I was just going to say, spell out human resources. Put HR.
Right, human resources, right. Okay, so do we have consideration and approval for the revised RSU 5 strategic plan?
So moved.
Maddie, Lindsay, any other discussions, questions? All those in favor? None opposed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great work.
Yes.
And thank you for everyone who served on that committee, because it was.
But they're not done, right?
Well, they're not done, but we're.
Don't think you're
getting there.
done.
Yeah. But we're getting near the end.
Good.
And before Mary Jane leaves, I want to just commend her incredible work. Without her, we probably would still be plowing through the first set of data. So thank you, Mary Jane.
Yes, I would echo that. And I also echo, I guess I also want to thank the board for allowing us to hire Mary Jane, because I know that there are some boards that feel like, no, that is the job of the superintendent, but it was really nice to have someone who's gone through this process multiple times guiding us through that work. And I agree with Valley that it's really been invaluable. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving on to the super exciting part of our our agenda. 12C, move that the computation and declaration of votes dated June 12, 2019 and attached hereto be approved. It's blank, but.
No, I have.
No, there's one that was.
Why don't I have a blank one?
Because that's what it was. That's what it was originally,
This
and
was
you should.
This was all in my packet. Whatever.
No, it's in
Everything
your
was in my
purple.
purple folder, but that's fine. Okay. It was in my folder. I took everything out of my purple folder. There must be another one in here somewhere. It's fine. All right. So anyway, basically it just showed what Becky had told us earlier, that 553 votes for and 266 votes against the budget. And also question 2, which was, do you want to continue using the referendum vote as the final approval for the budget? That also passed 613 to 199. So we are looking for a motion to, thank you. Jen, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Move that the computation and declaration of votes be entered upon the records of Regional School Unit Number 5. Valley, Kate, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. And move that the certified copy of the computation and declaration of votes be sent to each of the municipal clerks within the regional school unit. Kate and Valley, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Okay, so move that the assessment warrant and the assessment schedule and notice of installments prepared by the treasurer for each member municipality of this regional school unit for fiscal year 2019-2020 be approved and be issued in form presented to this meeting, and that the treasurer be authorized and directed to deliver to each member municipality its assessment warrant and its assessment schedule and notice of installments.
What does that mean?
That basically means we're telling Michelle to bill the towns. Is that fair? And when to pay.
We are telling.
That's right. Lindsay and Erica, all those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Okay, so that's all of our unfinished business. New business, 13A, consideration and approval to authorize this.
Oh, just one.
Do you need us to sign something right now?
No.
We can.
I think we can do it at the end.
Okay, before the executive.
Yeah.
We got executive session. Nobody's leaving. Don't worry. Consideration and approval to authorize the superintendent to hire staff between June 13, 2019, tomorrow, and the first board meeting in September 2019. Lindsay, John, all those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're just cruising through these things now for a half a minute. 14, organizational business to take effect July 1, 2019. Consideration of action to appoint a chair to the RSU number 5 Board of Directors.
I
Candy.
nominate Michelle Richardson.
Other nominations? Looks like you might be stuck with me, Becky. Yeah. You sure no other nominations? Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Opposed? That would just look weird, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Okay, so consideration of action to appoint a vice chair to the RSU number 5 Board of Directors.
I nominate Lindsay. Oh, sorry.
Me too.
Then I'll second that.
Okay, any other nominations? Would you like to nominate someone?
Right, do they get to say if they want it, right?
Well, yeah, can I
You sure?
discuss right
Yeah.
now? I would encourage, I'm struggling a little bit with my work schedule because I work very frequently Wednesday nights throughout the season. It's a hot night for nonprofit events, etc. So I would encourage, if anyone else has interest, I mean, I will do the best that I can, but I have doubts that I can have a great attendance record.
Jeff?
I would be interested in doing it if Lindsay didn't want to do it. I certainly think you do a great job, but I can understand that there's seasons in our lives, and I think I could do it at this point if it was available.
Okay, so we have a nomination for Jen from Erica.
I'll second.
Kate? Okay. Anyone else interested?
I would like to nominate Maddie.
Okay. We have a second for Maddie? Jen? You can second, you can move a motion and not vote for it or vote for it.
Okay. So
Okay.
how do you do that?
So,
Is she withdrawing her?
are
Yeah.
you,
Yeah.
so you'll withdraw yours, so you'll decline yours?
I will decline my nomination.
Okay.
Is that what you want me to say?
Can she do that? We're all looking at Ginny.
Yeah.
She can say no, thank you?
I can say I decline my nomination. No, she
Okay. Okay, so, yes.
I'm honored to be nominated, and I'm going to also decline for this year. I may consider it in future, but Jen, you're interested.
But by no means don't.
No, you raised your hand, and I have too much on my plate at the moment.
Okay, so we have a nomination on the floor. Do we have any other nominations? Except for Erica. We cannot nominate Erica. She's the only one we can't nominate. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor for Jen as the vice chair for the upcoming year. All those in favor?
Oh, sorry.
We're just putting our hands up until you do. Okay. Opposed? None. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you, John.
And thank you, Lindsay, for doing a fantastic job this year and being my Robert's Rule expert. And you'll have to pass the book to Jen.
Okay.
Or just correct me anyway.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thank you very much. It was an honor.
I would also like to thank Lindsay for her help in that role, and also say she did a fabulous job on Sunday modeling what we love to see with wearing of the gown. So thank you for setting a new standard that I hope that
I'm a believer in choice. I choose
board
not
chair
to.
will live up to.
It's funny, actually, Jen said to me when I came in, you know Lindsay wore the gown, right? I was like, she rocked it. I saw the picture. It's not my style. Okay, so thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so 14C, consideration and approval for Drummond Woodsum to act as the school attorney for the 2019-2020 school year. Valley, Jen, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Consideration and approval for Dr. Stephanie Phelps to act as the school physician for the 2019-2020 school year. Maddie, Lindsay, all those in favor? None opposed? Has anybody met this person?
No.
Do we know this person?
I feel like we talked about this last
Yeah.
year.
Does she know us? Like, does she know she's our physician?
She does.
Okay. She what? Oh, good. Okay, perfect.
I don't know.
All right, personnel. So 15. You ready?
I think I am.
Okay. So the first one we have is consideration and approval to employ a first grade teacher at the Moore Street School for the 2019-2020 school year.
So I'm happy to recommend Jillian Merrill for the first grade teacher at Moore Street School. She has been working at Turner Primary School in Turner and graduated previously from UNE with a master's in curriculum and instruction. I worked previously with Jillian while I was in Turner and can attest to her being very student-centered and focused on implementing best practices. And I look forward to working with Jillian once again.
Okay, do we have a motion? Valley, second. Lindsay, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Welcome, Jillian. So, motion and approval to employ a special education teacher at the Mass Landing School for the 2019-2020 school year.
I'm enthusiastically recommending Jamie Murphy as the special education teacher at Mass Landing School. She comes to us with a degree from Castleton State College in Vermont and is currently working at the Fiddlehead School as a special education teacher. One reference notes her skills in working with the most challenging students are beyond any that I have ever seen. She has an innate ability to figure out programming for the most challenging and difficult students to help them be successful in the school setting. So we're delighted to welcome her to RSU 5.
Okay, do we have a motion? Maddie, second. Candy, all those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Consideration and approval to employ a math teacher at Freeport High School for the 2019-2020 school year.
I'm happy to be recommending Eric Whitaker as the math teacher. He comes to us from Marshfield High School with a bachelor in math from Bridgewater State and a master's from Fitchburg. Eric is considered an invaluable member of the math department who is open and willing to collaborate on how to enhance the delivery of instruction to students. And although Jay Thomas will be sorely missed, we believe that Eric's going to be a great addition at Freeport High School.
Okay, do we have a motion? Maddie, second. Valley, all those in favor? None opposed? Thank you. Welcome, Eric. Consideration and approval to employ a grade 7-8 humanities teacher at Durham Community School for the 2019-2020 school year.
We're excited to recommend Julie McCabe as the humanities teacher. Julie has a master's in government from Johns Hopkins and is currently working in Westbrook as a gifted, talented teacher and is eager to return to the kind of regular ed classroom. Her reference states that she has an innate sense as to what her students' needs are, which when paired with the assessment data she uses to create a more personalized learning experience for her students. And we believe she's going to be a great fit at Durham.
Maddie, Mara, thank you. All those in favor?
Question?
Yes,
Another
sorry,
question.
your question, yeah.
So, Becky, what is K-12 690? What is the accreditation? 690, what does that mean? And then 712, 200 and 100.
In the endorsements?
Yeah, I want to know what the certification
I think
is.
the K-12, it means that that may be the GT. And then 712 is the social studies and language arts.
Okay. Right.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second already. Any other questions? All those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Welcome, Julie. Consideration and approval to employ a special education teacher at Durham Community School for the 2019-2020 school year.
No, you skipped one.
What'd I skip?
Math strategy.
Oh, yeah, I marked it off. Sorry.
That's all right.
We'll just move back one.
Okay.
E, consideration and approval to employ a district math strategist for the 2019-2020 school year.
So I'm very excited to recommend Talia Edlin as the pre-K to 5 math strategist. She has a master's in elementary ed from Brooklyn College and is currently working at the Riverton School in Portland as a 5th grade teacher. Her reference states that Talia is conscientious beyond measure. She is truly devoted to children and has the dedication, desire, and skills that are seen in educators of exceptional quality. The committee unanimously endorsed her to be our next math strategist.
Okay, motion, Maddie, Candy, thank you. All those in favor? None opposed, thank you. Okay, now we shall move on to consideration and approval to employ a special education teacher at the Durham Community School for the 2019-2020 school year.
I'm delighted to be recommending Stacy Bilodeau as the special ed teacher at DCS. She comes to us from Auburn School District with a master's from UMO. Her reference notes that Stacy's wealth of experience working with differently abled learners, love of learning, compassion, and professionalism all contribute to her success in the school environment. And we feel very lucky to be stealing Stacy from Auburn.
I'm sure they feel really lucky too to be. They're like, we're not so lucky. Okay, all those in favor? Maddie? Jen? All those, motion. Maddie? Jen? All those in favor? Everyone, thank you. None opposed. Welcome, Stacy. Okay. So we are going back to 15G, which was one of our amendments at the beginning. Consideration and approval to employ a chorus teacher for the Freeport Middle and Freeport High School for the 2019-2020 school year.
I'm really excited to recommend Nathaniel Menfield as a chorus teacher at Freeport Middle and High School. Nate has a master's degree in educational policy from Stanford University, and I have had the privilege to work with Nate for the past year as he's been working as the DOE rep to the Cumberland County Superintendents. He previously worked at Kennebec High School as the choral teacher. He's also proficient in French. We just have so much we could be having him do. All of his references place him in the top 5% of educators they've known, and we just are excited to watch how Nate will grow and strengthen our choral program in RSU 5.
Okay. Maddie wants to move that one. Second? Valley? All those in favor? Okay, none opposed. Thank you. Welcome, Nathaniel. Okay. Yeah.
So, do honest to God get 65 candidates for a first grade teaching position?
Yes, everyone wants to be here.
No, I think that's absolutely crazy, and I that's awesome. I mean, obviously, some other specialized areas you don't get that many, but so that is the place to be in first grade.
It is interesting when you look at the younger grades, the numbers were much higher than like but even the high school, right? I mean, those ones, for the math teacher was 8,
15 is the highest.
Yeah.
It's
65. Yeah.
I also noticed we have a number of graduates this year who are going to Farmington and going into education. So it's I noticed what you said recently about Farmington graduates and having a really great program. I think it's great that we're sending a lot of kids there who want to be in education. It's exciting.
And we had 2, right? 2 of our retirees tonight were students at Freeport High School and then came back to teacher in their careers, which I think is just a really cool circle of life. So, okay, so those are...
Since we're talking about applicants, I had a question for Will, and I was going to ask him later, but do you know, Will, how many of the people who applied for the middle school position had K through 8 certification versus 7 through 12?
And would you go to the mic? Well, please.
He almost got away without having to talk other than...
No. So we did, that's a short answer, I don't mean to be flippant about it. We were certainly, conscientious of the conversations that we'd had this spring. And I would say to you that in our process, as we had sort of said, and Ray Grogan had shared too at the time, we primarily focus on getting the best candidate. All things being equal, we would have gone for KA over 712. But in this circumstance, we had advertised very specifically for a position with really quite specific language to be able to increase the amount of reading and writing that our students get. In our schedule, there's limited language arts time at the 7th and 8th grade, and we really need to increase that. So when the social studies position opened up, the focus was very much upon having a humanities role that would add in authentic reading and writing. And so when posted in that structure, we tend to get sort of subject specialists although, again, we were very much open to, if we found someone who was equal or best, obviously with K8, that would have been given us some flexibility. But hopefully, we're very excited about the candidate we have.
And I guess I would like to add, through this hiring season, I've been very aware of where the strategic plan is headed, and the feedback that we have received from from all of our stakeholders. So we are looking for candidates who show evidence of being more hands-on and have experience with experiential type of learning. And so that is what we're bringing to you. And in this case, I would agree with Will that we didn't have, thank you. It's been a long evening with a lot of names. Yes. That guy. Yeah, that guy. Yeah. That we didn't have two candidates that were equal in all ways, with one having that one certification and the other one having a K-8.
That's it? Yeah.
Thank you for considering and for picking the best one.
Okay.
Okay, so we are back to public comment. I think we may have run everybody out of the joint by now. But I think we had more public comment today than we've had through most of the year, so that was great. I was glad to see several people show up. So, all right, so now I would take a motion for consideration and approval to enter into executive session as outlined in 1 MRSA Section 405-6A for the purpose of discussing the superintendent's evaluation. Thank you, Maddie and Maura. All those in favor? None opposed? 8:56 in.
Well, not in, because you've got to